So hey guys, very recently quite a few of you have asked me about my client workflow. So I wanted to make a specific video for you, kind of breaking down some of what I do and what are my most common practices. I do have to say, a side note, a very small disclosure here, that what I do works for me. It works with the clients that I generally attract in the market that I'm generally working to. So some of this information may or may not work for you. It's really important that you find something that works best for you with how you want to deal with your clients. It's the great thing about owning our own business is that we have the ability to change whatever we want, however we want, whenever we want. So I really do encourage you to take what I'm saying and make it your own a little bit based off of how you see your own business. All right, so let's get down into the nitty-gritty. What does it look like when a client contacts Michelle Cox Photography? So I have to say the majority of the time, my clients are coming to me and they've already seen my work, whether they were referred by one of their friends, they've seen my work on Instagram or Facebook. So most of my clients do know what my work looks like when they reach out to me. A client would first interact with a page that is the Contact Me page on my website, which has a survey. It's the most simplest information that they could possibly give, but most of the time the clients have that if they are a wedding client, which is their names, their email address, the wedding date. I think the wedding location is on there also, but also their photography budget. All of this stuff is pretty vital to my interaction with my clients. One, I want to make sure that I'm available on their wedding date. Two, if they are in the general vicinity of the Chicagoland area, they would receive my standard rates, but if they are outside of that area, I'd like to know that so that I can send them any kind of a custom travel quote. Three, I do want to find out what their budget is. Since I've been in business for 7 years, my rates have gradually increased every year, every season. So it's important for me that the client that reaches out to me can afford my services. I do also want to state that I do list the starting prices for my wedding packages on my website. So the hope and goal of listing things like your price point on your website or your location and showing beautiful images in locations that you love is to hopefully gather enough information to attract your ideal client. My ideal client does not just love the way I photograph, but they're also willing to spend what I'm hoping for them to spend, and they do also resonate with my personality. If you do not have a storefront, your website is your storefront. So that first impression of how you function as a business and what you're interested in should be something that they can see right away without even having to contact you. So immediately after a client reaches out to me, what is the first thing that I do? I respond as fast as possible. I think it's super important in the day and age that we live in, where anybody can email anybody, that you need to stand out from the crowd. So one of the things that I do specifically to stand out from my competition is to respond as fast as possible. You have to understand that from a bride's perspective or a potential client's perspective, when they are emailing photographers, they're probably not just emailing you. Unless they have a specific connection to you, there's a good chance that they've searched on Google for photographers in their area, found styles or budgets that resonated with them specifically, and then emailed all of them. The best thing that you can do is find some way to distinguish yourself, and what I feel is the best way of doing that is to respond immediately and then make that conversation, build that connection as quickly as possible. The way that you communicate with them in these first emails will drive conversation into more emails. Yes, we've all had clients that will reach out to us, get the information that they need, and then crickets. We will never hear from them again. It's still part of the business. It happened to me in year 1, it happens to me in year 7, and it's going to happen in year 20, because not every client wants to communicate with us through email, likes emailing, wants to build a connection with you, and I don't really have a lot of good advice to avoid that entirely. But what I can tell you is the more connection that you build with them in your emails, the more questions that you ask, the more personal contact that you keep with them, you will find a way to weed out the clients that don't want to talk to you and to bring the clients that do want to talk to you more into that realm of getting excited to start planning with you. So build as many personal connections as you can, ask them as many questions as you can. So when all of my questions are answered and I know their budget, I know their wedding date, I know the location, I will finally send over my wedding rates. So this shouldn't be too big of a shock for them because again, I do list it on my website what my packages start at. So I will send my wedding rates over to them. When I do that, I will also put a sentence in there that'll say, I'd love to schedule a call with you or meet with you in person. Is that something you'd be interested in doing within the next few days? Ideally, I would love to talk with these clients and connect with them on more of a personal level, like on the phone or in person. But again, you do have to understand that these people are busy. They're just trying to get rates from lots of different photographers, and they'll do the best that they can to respond. If they really, really like the interaction that they're having with you through email, if they love what they're seeing in your photos and the price looks like something that will work for them, there's a pretty good chance that they will move forward to talking on the phone with you. Sometimes if I feel like I'm not making as good of a connection with the couple through email, I'll usually tell them that I would love to talk on the phone with them to explain my packages a little bit more, to give them some advice on which direction of a package I think they should go, but also to explain my processes. Just asking them to get on the phone is not always gonna work. Most people would need a reason, right? So you're giving them the reason. You're telling them, let's talk about X, Y, and Z on the phone. If you're targeting a particular client in a certain price point, it's important that you convey the same message throughout the process. This is absolutely crucial if you are doing any kind of a high-end product or a luxury product. You need to be using words and phrases that are similar throughout the process. So what are you selling and how is it different and how is it higher end? What are you specifically doing through your client process to show people that you are holding their hands throughout this process, that you are giving them the answers before they ask it, that you are creating a different kind of experience here. You need to be able to show that throughout the process, and that requires consistency in your process, in your conversations, in your everything. So very recently I've gotten a lot of questions about Honeybook. I've made it pretty clear in the past that I use Honeybook for my client management services, and I absolutely love Honeybook. Honeybook is a way that I can create consistency in my brand, that I can create consistency in my client experiences. When I said that the clients have to fill out a survey in order to even contact me, Honeybook has this great way of being able to embed this survey into your website. So it goes in and asks them their names, their contact information, the wedding date. That information is then pulled over to Honeybook, and there is then a client portfolio that's kind of opened with all of their information. So it's fantastic because all of the communications back and forth goes into Honeybook, and I don't have to necessarily worry about that. There's separate categories where I can see if they've reached out to me, if it's a pending booking, if I've sent a quote and I'm still waiting to hear from them, and then if they proceed to book me as their photographer, which in my case requires a signed contract and a deposit, they go into a different category then, so then I know that they're booked. Very recently, one of my photographer friends told me that she has a hard time reaching back out to people because she'll lose track of who's emailed her and if she hasn't heard from them again. So that's a nice way that Honeybook does keep the clients in a category. It shows that you've reached out to them, that they've reached out to you, but you still have yet to hear back from them. So it's very nice that a way that you can kind of keep track of, like, oh, I have these 16 people that have reached out to me that I never heard from again. Let me just shoot all of them an email, and then it just makes your life so much easier. To flip back over to my process though, just to let you guys know what I do. After I send my rates to my client, generally I will reach out somewhere within that 7 to 14 day mark, and I will follow up with them and ask them again if they had any questions about the rates and if they would like to schedule an in-person meeting or a phone call. I will pretty much leave it at that. If this client just came from me out of the blue and we have no prior connection, I will consider that my one opportunity to reach out, and then I won't do it anymore. It can vary a little bit though, because if that client came to me and told me that they were a contact of a previous client of mine, or if they knew of my work through a very personal connection with one of my past clients, I will actually proceed to reach out a second time 1 or 2 weeks after that. So this process will lengthen a little bit if there was some sort of connection beforehand. So I do specifically want to bring that part about the follow-up because I feel like that's a common question. People want to know, how often are you following up? When are you reaching out again? Like I said before, this process seems to work well for me, and I've refined it for the last several years, but this is where I'm at now, and this seems to work really well for me. Hopefully some of these tips helped you. I would love to hear if you have more questions on this. Believe me, I know that this is all scary stuff. When the client actually reaches out to you, you want to remain as composed and as professional as possible. And I know anything that you do feels like you could lose the client, and you want to make sure that you're not. Let me reiterate again, the most powerful thing that you can do is to create a personal connection with these clients as quickly as possible. I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on this. As always, I would love for you guys to hop on over to our Facebook group, All Things Wedding Photography, and let's talk about this. I am an open book, so I'd love to hear your thoughts or more questions if you have them. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and feel free to subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.